Does Jerome Powell hate the housing market? Folks, we're back for another Friday financial wrap-up with Mr. Michael Zuber. How are you, Michael?
I think that is an awesome way to start the show. Does Jerome Powell hate the housing market? And you've got to at least ask the question. I mean, after what he did on Wednesday. And what I think the Fed deserves a lot of blame, and I've said so for years, for breaking the housing market. And I think Powell kind of feels that a little bit. And what he did on Wednesday was pretty wild, right? So he comes out, he gives us our quarter point, which we all expected. He also announced the date for ending QT. We'll talk more about QT and QE in a minute. Which, according to Bank of America and JP Morgan, that's supposed to feel like another quarter point. So in reality, we kind of got 50 yesterday or on Wednesday. Yeah. And then he gets in front of the microphone. And, I usually talk about being a dove or a hawk. Sometimes I've called him a pterodactyl, right? Which is meant to be worse than a hawk. I think on Wednesday he was a T-Rex, right? He was just a T-Rex. And, he was like, no, December rate cut's not a foregone conclusion, far from it. And he's just trying to talk down the market, right? And, that obviously has the largest impact immediately on interest rates, right? What we saw going into the meeting for the fifth time, folks, I hope you're paying attention. Rates were drifting lower pre-meeting. Then Powell gets in front of the microphone and rates rip higher, right? Kind of rinse and repeat for 5 times, right? And, we saw it again. And it's you just got to ask, because we were at, I think 2-year lows or near 2-year lows for rates. They were like 6.1 or something. And, we were gradually driven.
I'm not sure if that was my internet. Looks like I'm still live. So it sounds like Michael had some technical difficulties, and that's okay. I'm sure he'll jump back on. He'll probably jump back on with his phone. So a couple things today, October 31st, 2025. Here we are, Friday financial news wrap up. Right now without Michael Zuber, but I'm sure he's going to be jumping back on. I would assume, let's see, I'm going to turn my ringer on in case he calls me. And so what we were talking about today is Jerome Powell, talking about in terms of the positioning, right? We got a quarter point rate cut. And at the same time, just a lot of comments in terms of the questions with the press, his interaction. It seemed as though he was, basically indicating that don't expect a December cut, that, that they're obviously in a position where he's, again, as Michael said, hawkish, right? He said, basically using a dinosaur, like a T-Rex, that the beyond hawkish, that he's very, very much so not to expect or price in more rate cuts. So very, very interesting times. Let's see. So is Michael jumping on? That's okay. We'll just still keep going on. So a couple of things too, what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Jerome Powell, the housing market. How does this all play out? Fed day, right? We'll talk about in terms of commentary. QT versus QE. QT versus QE. Quantitative tightening versus quantitative easing. What is it? We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about layoffs. The government shutdown. It's hard to believe. Here we are still in government shutdown. We'll also talk about pending home sales. So I am going to call Michael. Should I call him live and see here? How you doing? Hey, buddy. I'm still rolling. So what I was going to say is it possible that maybe you can jump on via your phone? There's a StreamYard app. There's a StreamYard app, and that I would say maybe, or even the link you emailed me, maybe just jump on that link. Yep. Yeah, cool. Okay, right on. So Michael's going to jump on. They had a network issue. Michael lives in a neighborhood where there's a lot of new construction. So a lot of real estate development. I know he's talked about that. And so it wouldn't surprise me. This is probably related to, who knows, they're doing some underground work. So pretty wild though. And I want to comment, this was interesting, is that the trend for the 30-year mortgage, and maybe I can pull it up and show it. If you guys, we use, generally the industry standard is Mortgage Daily News is where we're typically looking at interest rates. Interest rates this week were started off really low. Last week, low. We were headed, it looked like we were headed toward 6, maybe even sub 6 in the next couple of weeks based on the trend. Rates of like 6.17, 6.2. And then the Fed does the announcement, he does the press conference, and what happens to the 30-year mortgage? The 30-year mortgage jumps back up 6.3, maybe even a little bit higher. I'm going to pull that up. So love it. Michael is just working through the technical difficulties. I'm going to pull up the Mortgage Daily News. It's interesting that, you'll get a press. It's interesting that the general public, they hear 25 basis points, Jerome Powell, the Fed cuts rates, and the average consumer thinks, that means that rates are gone down. But in fact, they actually even just bounced up. So let me just pull this up here, and I want to show you the chart. So if I go to, let's see, how do I share this? Screen share. Yep. And here we go. All right. So if we take a look, if I pull, I go from January 1st to today, we take a look at, like you can see, generally we started the year roughly at about 7.26 in January. And we were actually, if you look here, we were actually trended down. The year low was October the 28th. October the 28th was the year low. So today, rates, again, these are averages. Could you find something in the 5s? Sure, you could, depending on credit, depending on points, all of that. But if you look at, 6.33 today, it shot back up again based on the comments from Jerome Powell. So I think when Michael and I are talking about, does Jerome Powell hate the housing market, that's kind of playful, right? Also, too, does he see something else? Does he have concerns? Does he have maybe Jerome Powell seeing some other data that would indicate, hey, again, they kept talking about tariff inflation, right? Tariff inflation, concerns about tariff inflation, also very interesting. But again, if we look at even just from June 1st to here, October 30th, you'll see we hit a year low at about 6.17, I believe, and headed towards 6, maybe even sub 6. So let's see, got it on my phone, but I can't add myself back in the room. Let me see if I can add Michael. Stand by. Just keep ruling. You're doing great. So Michael said, I'm doing great, folks. He said, I'm doing great. So yeah. So if we look at, let's see, I'm going to pull this chart up. Let's see. How can I present that? Does that? Okay. All right. So government shutdown. I want to talk about government shutdown for a moment. It's interesting that the government shutdown, there were a lot of people that were under the belief and concept that, hey, government shutdown. There was a big protest, I believe, last Saturday, No Kings, right? The No Kings protest. And some people thought it would be over after that. I kind of was always thinking that we need to that they would probably extend past the first week, right? So next week, what's next week? It's also election, right? There's the election. And I know in California, probably the biggest thing in California right now is this Prop 50, which, they're saying yes on Prop 50, no on Prop 50. And what Prop 50 has to do is it has to do with redistricting, and where basically the idea is that they're saying, stop rigged elections. And so the way I understand Prop 50 is that Prop 50 is where they could potentially redistrict certain parts of the state, potentially to maybe get more votes. He's back.
No, man, you're doing great. You're doing great. I had to reboot my entire computer and my system. Crazy stuff this morning. Sorry.
My shirt is soaked. I was so nervous.
You got nervous.
I was like, oh my, what am I gonna do? Michael's not here. Wait. Welcome back.
You did great.
Michael
I'm
Zuber.
sorry.
You're great. No,
it's a live show.
Great.
What are you gonna do? It's live.
You know what I did is I blamed it on. I said, you live in a new subdivision and they're doing a lot of construction, which is true. And I said, maybe the internet went out. I don't know. So welcome back.
It's funny. Yeah, funny. 2 weeks ago, I lost internet for 36 hours because somebody hit something. Yeah, crazy.
I remember you so committed to the show. You went to Joe D's office.
I did do that one time.
Yeah. So you're like, hey, get a hold of Joe. I need to use his studio.
Yeah, I need to use the studio. They took out my internet. Yeah, it's crazy. So, but you're doing good. I don't want to cut the flow.
No. So let's pick up. So let's finish on why do you think Jerome Powell, housing market, and Fed Day? Put a bow on that. The Fed Day and Jerome Powell and the housing market.
I think at the end of the day is he's playing for his legacy at this point. He's going to be out in May. He's got, I think, 3 Fed meetings left. And he doesn't want to go out a chump. So he's going to push back every chance he gets. I think he wants to skip December. He doesn't want to do another one. And I don't know that he really hates housing, but he's it's like you're a senior in high school and you're on that final month, right? You're just short-termitis. You're just trying to get out and not make a fuss. You don't want to be blamed for, he doesn't want to be Arthur Burns, right? And he's afraid if you cut rates too many times, inflation takes off and he gets blamed. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Very interesting. So let's keep going. What is QT and QE?
So QT is where the Fed essentially shrinks its balance sheet, which extracts liquidity from the market. And QE is the reverse of that. It's where they add liquidity and grow their balance sheet. And, what people may not realize is we've been under QT or quantitative tightening for something like 3.5 years. It is now going to end. It's going to end on December 1st. And that's significant. Bank of America and I think it was JP Morgan both said that's going to feel like another quarter point in goodness because the Fed's not going to be extracting equity from the system. So again, it's they're going to be ending QT, and there's lots of people think QE or the money printer is right around the corner. Some people are saying right after Jerome Powell gets out in May, right, we're going to just ramp up QE again. I hope that's not true, but it's something to watch for.
So the idea with QE is that that's where, again, you just see companies and just all of a sudden the machine gets going, the stock market takes off.
Go down. Yeah.
Rates go down. Okay. All right. Very interesting times. So let's talk about layoffs this week.
Yeah. Layoffs are picking up, certainly hitting the headlines more. I think Amazon just did, the rumor was 30,000. I think they did 16,000, all white collar middle management. Amazon's running the press tour this morning saying this was not AI, it was culture, which I think is interesting. Another thing Amazon's talking about doing is laying off 600,000 folks in their warehouses by 2030, right? So again, robots and AI are coming. It seemed like every day last week we had more and more layoffs. So it certainly seems that the no hire, no fire strategy from companies, which has been in effect for a year, seems to be ending, and it's ending on the wrong side, meaning layoffs are up.
Interesting. Very interesting. The AI robot thing is real, right? It just depends on the industry. It's some people are like, oh, don't worry about it, but it's happening. It's happening. It just may not be happening as fast as people think. Is that your take?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Chamath Palihapitiya, but I think he had a very interesting insight. I think a lot of these current layoffs, I think they're throwing under the banner of AI because it's convenient. I
Ah,
think the real answer is they overhired for DEI and all these other special projects, and middle management just got out of hand. I think that's what's happening. I certainly think AI is playing a role. Don't get me wrong. But I think today AI is more of a productivity increase. Maybe
mhm.
it closes open recs. But yeah, I've seen this movie before, and I've
Yeah,
been in these boardrooms, and I think executives are pointing at AI because they know they don't get blamed. They don't get any more questions. Oh, of course AI is doing that. They don't want to say we just fired our DEI team, right?
yeah.
So, I don't know. I have a
It's
hard time
convenient.
believing yeah, it's convenient.
Very well said. That makes a lot more sense. Let's talk about the government shutdown. And while you were getting your internet back up, one of the
Yep.
things I talked about is that I talked about No King's Day, the protests.
I was watching. You were doing good. I saw it.
Okay, cool. So then, kind of also in California, Prop 50,
Yep.
and not only that, but I believe that's happening in other states. Where are we at
Yeah, I
on the
think
government shutdown? And do we get past it once we get past this next election thing that's happening here, this next election piece this next week?
I think there's been a lot of people searching for when the Democratic Party will vote with a clean CR. I think there's been a lot of guessing. No King's Day was a convenient guess before. We do have an election on the 4th or 5th, whatever Tuesday is. I think that's another convenient thing. What I think's going on is the pressure is building. I don't know if you guys saw this, but um, like the Teamsters came out and said sign the clean CR. The airlines are coming out saying sign the clean CR. And tomorrow, 42 million Americans who are on SNAP, the majority of them aren't going to get that,
That's bad.
and that's going to be interesting. So I've said since the very beginning that my over under was this was going to be the longest one on record. 35 days is the longest, which means we have to go to, I think, the 4th will be 35 days because there's 31 days in October.
Yeah.
So I think we get there. And I guess what does shock me, because I don't know how else to say this, but I can't believe there's 5 or 6 moderate Democrats that don't just vote to keep this, to open the CR. To say the Republicans are doing this or that, they've tried to open it, I don't know, 14 times, and it only opens with 60 votes, and they only have like 53 seats, so they can't do it themselves.
Right.
And it's just shocking to me that there aren't 6 moderate Democrats that go, this is nonsense. We voted for this when Biden was in office. Why is it suddenly bad because the orange man's there? I mean, at some point you either care about people or you don't. And, right
Yeah.
now we've got 42 million people on the cusp of, not getting food. I mean,
Horrible.
horrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
People over parties, And yeah. So, okay. So that would be, so the 4th would be, that is Tuesday, November the 4th is the election day. So
So yeah, we go to the 5th and bingo. I mean, again, I think there's a good, I mean, I think I said this very early on. This might go 60 days. And 60
you,
days is interesting because then you can make those layoffs permanent.
that very, very interesting times. Let's keep moving. Pending home sales, what happened and what's your take on it?
Yeah, one of the things that you have to start asking yourself is, where is the impact of the government shutdown going to be? And something I said very, very early on is, in the housing market, it'll be in the pending home sales. And it just, the psychology and just all of this going on is going to dent that. And it certainly did. Last month, we were up over 4%. It was expected to go up about 1.5%. It went up 0. So, same as the previous month, but, it's not building on the strength that I thought we would. Without the government shutdown, I think we would certainly be positive month on month, and we weren't. We were flat. But yeah, dude, this has been going on a month now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, it's interesting that the fall housing market feels so much stronger than the spring market or even the summer market. It just, and again, I think rates matter, right?
Mhm.
you've said that all along for forever since I've known you. Rates matter, and it actually finally shows up. Let's talk about earnings. What happened this week with earnings?
Yeah, earnings were generally good. I mean, there are some rare exceptions. Fiserv, not Pfizer, Fiserv was one of them. I think they got whacked by like 40%. Carvana was pretty bad as well. So I think generally speaking, earnings were good. As of last week, it was I think 85% of folks beat earnings. I think it's probably lower than that now. It's probably in the low 80s at this point. But all in all, beat. There's not as many raises as past cycles, but yeah, I mean, when you look at earnings and revenue, they beat top line and bottom line. Generally speaking, the quarter wasn't a disaster.
Two follow-ups on that from this week watching other daily news. You talked about the private credit showing up, the whole thing with Carvana, and talk about that. And then also, if you can also just quickly mention and talk about Google, and that there was kind of or Meta, excuse me, about revenue or expense outpacing revenue. Talk about those.
Yeah, man, you do watch my daily financial news. Thank you. So yeah, we'll do Meta first. So there were really two things in Meta earnings that were interesting. First, I don't remember the number, but I think it was like 14 billion or 16 billion non-cash tax expense, which is wild. I've never seen one that large before. But that was interesting because that obviously goes right to the earnings and hits earnings, but doesn't hit cash because it's a non-cash expense. But that makes their earnings look terrible. If you back that out, their earnings were actually really strong. But when you dig under the covers of Meta, you actually have a problem. And it's not what you typically see in tech companies this big, right? Meta's a monster.
Yeah.
And they have expenses growing faster than revenue.
Yeah.
Let me tell you one thing. That will not last long. They will fix that problem. And that probably means lots of layoffs because you can't have that long in that kind of a mature company. That's something you have in, baby companies.
Yes.
Not monsters that are 20 years, old and, 2 trillion or 3 trillion market cap. So that's a problem. That is a problem. Expenses growing faster than revenue.
Do you think it may be tied to DEI or the whole?
No. This is probably a combination of their investment in AI, and they're still dumping money into this metaverse thing. I think they had like $4 billion in this deep mind or whatever the heck they call their metaverse thing. So I just think they have, they have these like bazookas with cash going out. And now they have multiple bazookas,
right?
And they're gonna have to fix that because I mean that's a way to kill a company. And again, I'm not saying Meta's going that way. I'm just saying if you do that long enough, that's not good.
Over optimizing for what would be the future, and that it's like, hey, that's not really taking off. Okay, very interesting. Let's finish strong. Let's talk about school, the school community, and then also the Vegas event. I believe the tickets. I believe you're down to a certain
under
amount
100.
Of tickets.
Yeah, we're under 100 tickets, and none of my speakers have started to talk about it. So again, a lot of you in my community said you want to come. The speakers and Pace and Jason and all the other amazing speakers.
Tell them the thing I told you last week about Pace. I said, hey, just sell it out so you don't have to worry about it. Tell them just share that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to coordinate with Pace. He's obviously on this city tour, this bus. So we'll see if we can make it happen. But Pace is going to start marketing to his community, and that'll sell 100 tickets probably by itself. So be careful. I don't have any more space. The room's full. I can't add more. If you've been there before, it's a small space. So when these 100 or just under 100 go, they're gone. So buy your tickets early. And it's fun for me to see that we're getting that close to being totally sold out, which is fun. And then as for school, we're getting more and more people to join, right? We've got the school webpage or URL right there on the screen. We're having 5 or 6 people join a day because they understand that if they want to be in a wealth club, they want to be around other people building wealth. I just added a short-term and mid-term section. My hope is the team actually creates another accountability group for STR and MTR. Again, an area I have zero experience in, but that's another way you can build wealth. And we're just adding more and more go-givers, and it's fun to see real interactions in the forums, and it's just fun to watch this thing grow and grow and grow.
So good, folks. Get involved with school. By the way, let me just say to anybody out there, if you have high level CRM, I want to build a mastermind within the school community for ORaaT.
Nice.
I want to get a group together. I've started a post. We had some interest, but again, we are looking even on the tech side. How do we take tech stacks? How do we help, with our one rental at a time community, our investors? Folks, it's $20 a month. You're going to blow that today on a coffee and a muffin or whatever this weekend. Invest that $20 into yourself. Get involved with the school. And again, Vegas will sell out. The minute Pace Morby wiggles his pinky and mentions it on a Zoom, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas in February speaking with Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, the thing will absolutely, those 100 tickets or whatever, 99 tickets, those will get gobbled up. So if you want to come to Vegas, buy your ticket now. Buy your ticket to the event. Buy it now. Get involved with the school community. Folks, have a happy, safe Halloween. Michael, we've been doing this show for 5 years. Thank you for all that you do. I want to say that it's so much fun to do this show with you every Friday. And what a blessing. I actually am starting to understand what the hell's going on CNBC and what they're actually talking about and actually where the market's going. This is an opportunity market going into, this reminds me of the mid 90s. And guess what? People got really rich in the late 90s, 2000s. People got really, really wealthy. This is a very similar time, Michael. Any parting words?
Happy Halloween. Halloween, if you don't know, is my favorite holiday. It's the one where you get to just hand out gobs and gobs of candy and spoil the kids and put smiles on faces. I'm that house. If you come to my house, you might get 2 handfuls of candy. I've got way more candy than I need, so I'm going to try to give it all the way today. So it should be fun.
I love it. I love it. Nothing like giving away $200 or $300 worth of Costco candy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. We live in a great country, folks.
There
Michael,
you go.
Thank you for all that you do. Have a great weekend.
Later. You too.